Hi, we're here today. We're going to talk about our school improvement plan. We're going to be working on improving students' writing, researching, and listening skills. We want to have our seniors leave our building with improved skills in these areas. And specifically, we will be addressing some of the new Illinois learning standards from the Common Core. But we want an overall competency that these students have, and we want to do direct instruction and assessment in order to develop that. So we're here today because we want to kind of move forward with this and present to all of you our plan. Our students deserve the opportunities to have the best skills that they can when they leave our building. And one area under the ELA standards that we don't really do a lot of work with directly, some of it comes from writing, researching, listening, instruction. There is no researching section in the ELA standards per se, but it is worked into the writing section. Listening, though, is its own section, and it is one that is routinely kind of ignored. And when we look at what might benefit our students and what skills that they really need to be successful, listening is a major one. So we want to focus on what skills will benefit our students the most. And when we say benefit them, how can we prepare them for success when they leave us? And whether they're going to go on to college and then careers or directly to a career, directly into the military, what can we do to improve these skills? When we look at the writing ones, we have chosen ones that the skills are applicable to almost all situations. And then researching as well. We live in a data-rich environment. There's more information available than any one of us could ever dream of accessing. We need students to be able to be discerning researchers and developed writers, practiced writers. And then when we get into the listening instruction, it'll be kind of interesting to see, how much have we just been assuming about our listening. Have we ever taught students how to listen? Have we ever directly assessed it? And I just know as an ELA teacher standing up here, my answer is no. I've just always assumed students know how to listen, despite years of evidence that maybe they don't. And that's a really important skill, and it's not just a physical skill, it's a listening for information and being able to process it skill. And so that's one area that we can do, I think, quite a bit of good here and get our students ready for life after they leave us. All right, we have this SMART goal that we want our seniors, when they leave our courses, that final assessment is going to show that they have at least scored 85% on the post-test. And we're going to have it based on the research, writing, listening skills we've chosen from the learning standards. It is not every single standard by any means. It is not every single skill listed. So we're kind of picking the ones that we want. So it's a little more limited than probably what you're thinking. And here's where the really beautiful part comes in. So even though it's senior composition courses, and we'll be assessing in the English department in these courses, every single teacher here contributes to these. Okay, so whether you have research going on in your classroom or writing, and kudos and yay and thank you if you do, everybody has listening skills. And in fact, some courses where they particularly don't have research and writing, you really depend on listening skills and might have a significant contribution here. So I'm thinking of courses like band, chorus, PE. There really are not a whole lot of writing going on or research, not as we would think about it, and it is really dependent on listening. So everybody can be a part of this process and be contributing to this. And I think it's going to be really successful because when we put all of us behind it and they get this much instruction and they get this much practice and this much support, there's no way we're not going to get 85%. We're going to get this. We have a few benchmarks, so some specifics that we're going to be after. And we want daily practice in the three areas listed here. Now, in my classroom, which I have four of these courses, and I've already done this last year, and it worked well, but it's not what you would need to do, and everybody can certainly figure out how to do this themselves or can choose different options. But I just created a slide for each day, and that would have some practice form of these. So one really cool thing that we have is there's a Google question of the day, and I really find that it's kind of interesting and fun and can set them off on a little scavenger hunt. But if that doesn't appeal to you because it is kind of a general question and kind of different topics, you could have them research, a different composer each week, or you could have somebody look up the properties of this metal, whatever you want to do. So that would be a research one. In writing, perhaps the skill we'd be working on would be metaphors. Have them write a metaphor comparing your course topic to something else. And then listening, that can be any number of ways. If you have an audio clip that you want to use for your content, if you want them to follow step by step on a process that you're going to be having them do, like it can be incorporated throughout and it can be part of what you already do. There's no need to create extra work. It might help you to think about how to best present it. Not to say that I'm telling you have to change anything, but if certain ways work better, that might help you. Okay, so that's the first one. We want daily practice of them. And one of the things you're probably going to want to do, and I'm going to do, is break it down. Like if we're going to be assessing every 2 weeks, hopefully, then for 2 weeks, let's work on this one, or 2 weeks, work on this one. And some are easier than others, and you might not need 2 weeks, but you will be able to fine tune this. And I don't envision this taking more than 5 minutes a class each day, at most. Okay, so then we also want to increase our difficulty as we go, and I think that's kind of a natural inclination of most of us. I'm not going to come out with the most difficult thing right away. And so we will push our students and push them to take on more and figure out more as we go. And then we want them to show evidence of their skills in their essays. Now that's easy enough in my classroom because that's what we compose. But we can tweak this a little bit if you want to have them show evidence of it in a lab report. If you want them to have evidence in your end of the semester report on artist or art style, whatever it is that you assess normally, if there can be a way that we would work that in, that would be ideal. So hopefully what you can walk away from today is that there's no extra work here. We are just asking for a focus on something or a little bit more in depth or with this in mind when you go about your normal assignments and lessons. Since we have gone one-to-one this year with Google Chromebooks, this has allowed us to have an extra kind of padding here for us to accomplish our goals. So we want the direct daily instruction. One idea, and if this works for you, great, and if not, then no worries. Maybe you assign it as a question on a daily work. It could become your bell ringer. You might not even need to stand up there past the initial instruction method at the beginning of the semester and just kind of walk them through it at first, and then after that, only scaffold as needed. That could be a possibility. But we want that daily practice in there. The Google Classroom informs when we assess every 2 weeks, and that will be English for sure, although you are certainly welcome to as well. That will allow us to put the things out there. I wouldn't have to stand over them. But more so, when we use Google Forms for the questions, it goes directly into Google Sheets. And from Sheets, we can do lots of good things with our information and allows us for some visualizations and breakdowns of the information. And the other thing that we really want, because it is the overall goal of everything we do, is that students will be able to independently do this on their own. And not without us there, not without perhaps some scaffolding as needed or some accommodations as needed or required. But we want them to be able to say, oh, well, I need to find out blank. Here's my research skills. Here's how I go about it, without us standing there and having to do it. So those are our strategies and being able to work with this. So direct daily instruction, and we want to push them into independent practice, and we want to be able to utilize our Chromebooks and Google Classroom and Forms so that we have one kind of collective location of information and methodology here, and just makes it a little bit easier for all of us. Okay, so our assessments, we want to be able to view existing data from norm test. Because the state of Illinois only gave a park test 1 year, that was this past spring, so our current seniors have a park score. We have been given our overall our overall park score for the school, but we do not have individual. And even on the individual students, if we see them ever this year in time, we're not going to know exactly which things that they were weak in or strong in at this point. And in the coming spring, our current juniors will be taking the SAT, which is a departure. For about the last 15 years, the state of Illinois has had its juniors take the ACT as part of its PSAE test in spring. Then this past year, we only have Park, and now we're abandoning Park in favor of the SAT. Also, my understanding is that the SAT is changing its format from the verbal and math. And here in the Midwest, it's not a routine test because Midwestern schools usually took ACT. So our staff, we don't have a lot of familiarity with SAT. So our norm test information is perhaps not what we want at this point, and that is okay. So we're going to have some baseline information, and we're going to put it together through our pre-test. Okay, so our next step in developing this is which exact skills what we're going to work on, and it's going to have a plan of order, meaning which skills are we going to identify as some of the initial ones that we want them to work on, and then the increasing difficulty and what are some of the later ones, and then kind of put that together. The pretest and then assess it, and then we're going to have a look at that data and see where our learning gaps are. And if our students are already at 85% on some of these skills, then yay, we take them out of the mix, so to speak, and then we can focus on the ones where there's still gaps. So we're going to do direct instruction, as we mentioned in the previous slide, and practice the small formative assessments. Um, Ideally, bi-weekly. Hopefully that's not too often and too much information, particularly incorporating it through the Google Chromebooks and forms. The goal there is to make this as manageable as possible, and if the data is just automatically logged in and we can do things with it without us manipulating it too much, I think it'll be possible. And then at the very end, we're going to administer that post-test, and we can analyze it for growth, and then we can use this for our SLOs, and then part of our evaluation. So we have lots of control over what we focus on, how we focus on it, when we focus on it. We have options as how to deliver this content to the students, and we do have options and different routes in which to assess them. So as I mentioned earlier, I think we can find a way to use a couple minutes each day to do something with this, and the biweekly assessing shouldn't be too often, hopefully, but that's one of those adjustments that if we need to, we can make. And then we're going to knock this out, 85%. As far as who's going to be doing what, teachers, we've already talked about. You're going to be, the English teachers will be doing the bulk of it. It would be good, and everybody needs to do some assessment, and it could be as small as large as you wish. Um, we want to collect observational anecdotal, and some of the courses, probably more than the English ones, the observational and anecdotal might weigh even a little bit more. So I would be curious to see anecdotally, like Mr. Wright, if you notice that in band, if we've been focusing on listening for information and listening and processing skills, if you can see that in how well they're attuned to you as you're going throughout your practices. So some of you have more opportunity for observational anecdotal information and reporting. And then which instructional strategies do we want to be used and how to track it and stuff. So that's kind of what's on the teachers. Administrators are really going to be supporting the teachers on this one, and hopefully in processing the state information if we really get it ever. I'm not sure it's going to happen at this point, not this year. And then if we determine that a data tracking software is needed, and given that the Illinois para law says that we have to track information, that we all have to set our individual goals, and we have to show this growth each year, a lot of school districts have started to move to these data management systems, and so that's a real possibility. It has not been determined yet here, but that might be something that's part of a future conversation. Okay, as we get to the end of the semester and end of the year, and we re-examine this, we want to look at what's kind of happened over the course of the year. And even though we are focusing on ELA, all of these skills, as I mentioned earlier, really go to every single course in some way, shape, or form. And so we can look at, how successful were our students in other ways, like, is there any relationship on who graduated and how well somebody scored? Who did improve in reading? Did they also improve in math? And uh, how much did these skills transfer? And then part of it is parents and guardians are getting a survey, and what do they think about the student success? Does just even letting a parent, guardian know what we're focusing on skills wise support that at home and help us there? What do the students think of it? Do they appreciate? Do they notice? Do they, have this awareness that they've gained their skills in these areas? We need reflection throughout, and that's reflection on a lot of different things. Is this working? Is it worthwhile? Do I need a better method? Am I collecting the data not often enough, too often? Is it just right? Do I know what I'm doing processing it? So these are all things that we'll be asking ourselves, particularly toward the end of the semester and then at the end of the year, and do we need to make any changes? One last note here, Illinois State Board of Education has developed its own, more or less same version of the Common Core state standards. So officially, ours are the new Illinois Learning Standards for English Language Arts incorporating the Common Core. That's English Language Arts, particularly. These can be found at the link here, and also um, as far as the skills that we've determined, I have that in Appendix A, and we'll be handing that out shortly. And you can see, like, we've culled from the kind of exhaustive list just, a single page's worth of which ones we're going to focus on. And then our next step could be, okay, which ones do we think are initial ones, and then later, and then we can start our process. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please let me know.